Traditional relationships make so much sense. I remember when I first heard of this dynamic, when I was learning about intersexual dynamics and red pill and all that kind of rhetoric. And it just made a lot of sense to me, especially when I considered that the happiest relationship I had observed in my life was between my grandfather and my grandmother. Very traditional, very old school. My grandfather, kind of this masculine provider, and my grandmother, more of a nurturer, more of a making the house of home type personality. But here's something that I think, well, I know for a fact that a lot of these red pill YouTubers, a lot of the individuals that talk about the traditional relationship dynamic do not consider very much. And it's that our government realized a long time ago that it is not good for their bottom line to have stay-at-home mothers not contributing to income tax. So now everybody is an employee. Everybody is feeding into that particular system. And modern men nowadays are finding it really, really difficult in relationships because the, what would you say, financial value you bring to the relationship is not commensurate with this kind of masculine and feminine dynamic or this traditional dynamic. And there is a skewing in terms of who is leading the relationship, who is the provider in the relationship, and also having the means to provide for a relationship and for a family. Now, in my opinion, there are several different plays. The first one is to become a part of the top 1%. I mean, there are some individuals out there who, of course, can have a dynamic predicated on traditional values, who have a salary that is well north of six figures, maybe even higher than that might be necessary if they want to have multiple children, if they want to have material possessions as well. So if you're really set on this idea, I would implore you to forego your 20s, use your 20s, dedicate them to becoming the most powerful, wealthy man you can, build a business, maybe invest in some businesses, some assets that will allow you to attribute wealth over a long period of time. And only when you come into what you would consider maybe generational wealth, then you can start to date. In your early 30s, then you can start to open up the door to maybe potentially interviewing, because you're going to need to be interviewing women because your sexual market value will be through the roof at this stage, who you want to play that kind of feminine role in your life. Who's going to be the caregiver, who's going to raise the children, who's going to make the house a home. I see nothing wrong with that particular dynamic. I think it plays into the natural energies that we want to explore and express as men and as women in the world today. However, the problem is an economic one, is a financial one. The average man, I mean, this is top 1% salaries, and they call these the top 1% salaries for a reason, because they're top 1%. The second one would be to pursue a relationship predicated on your more modern relationship. This is an egalitarian relationship. This is a 50-50 split. This is, I take you out to dinner, I pay 50% of the bill, you pay 50% of the bill. This is, we want to move in together, right? 50% rent, 50% rent, 50% utilities, 50% utilities. You split it down the middle. Now, in theory, I think this is the most uncomplicated relationship. I think it's very simple. I think it's very straightforward. I think a lot of you who are watching this video now probably have relationships or who have had relationships predicated on these kinds of values. The trouble becomes when it's not, what would you say, sensitive towards the natural energies we express as men and women. Look, I think these are good, but I think they're naive. I think they don't resonate with the inherent dualistic nature of the world, meaning as men, we want to lead, we want to provide. As women, you want to nurture, you want to cultivate and educate. The 50-50 does not understand this, does not appreciate it, is not at peace with this idea. And naturally, there's going to become a power struggle in that relationship if it is not obvious and clear who plays what role. And I'll make it very simple. Name a ship that has two captains. Name an army who has two generals. When there is confusion in the relationship, typically there starts to breed contempt, and then resentment starts to feed in when you don't actually know what your role is supposed to be within the context of the relationship. So it's so important you get crystal clear. My role is this, your role is this. Because if one or the other starts stepping out into the provider role when they feel like they're the nurturer, then they're going to breed a resentment towards the individual they feel should be taking lead in the relationship, which is typically going to be the man. It's going to be the masculine energy here. She doesn't want to be the man, by and large. She wants you to be the man, and where an egalitarian relationship is the context, she's going to feel a kind of way, irrespective of what she thinks. Her body's going to tell her different. Her energy is going to tell her differently. And if you're not going to be sensitive towards that, then the relationship is already forfeit. Another play is be a passport bro. Many men are realizing now, and I did a video on this maybe about a month ago, that there are women out there, especially in the Eastern countries like the Philippines, where they do speak English, who love the concept of a traditional relationship, who are more than happy to play that, make a house a home, raise the children, educate the children, be the provider in terms of food and nutrition, all of that, and you be the sole provider of the financial resources. More than happy. I think the challenge comes in when you have to accept there's a more obvious and more direct exchange of values, meaning women are only interested in you because of the financial aspect that you bring. You have to be at peace with that idea first and foremost. You also need that financial means, and one of the big benefits of moving to a place like the Philippines on a Western salary is that you can live like a king. You're getting so much more for your currency. And men are doing this. A lot of men are doing this in their 30s who are just fed up with the dating market in the US or the UK or any kind of Western countries because they feel the women are too masculine. They don't have too many social ties. They can work from home. Maybe they have a software job where they just need an internet connection. They go, right, let me just move to the Philippines where it's more beautiful, where I'm going to get more for my money, when the women are more traditional, where I'm more valued fundamentally. And they're finding wives, they're settling down, they're having children, and they're living like kings out there. The only thing, now my personal opinion in this is, while that's a very, very attractive idea, I think there's another option. I think there's the final option. And I like to call this option, I got dinner, you get drinks. And this is an ideal balance, in my personal opinion, for somebody who wants to stay in the West, but recognizes that there are innate energies such as the masculine and feminine energies in the relationship. And this is a healthy medium between the egalitarian relationship and the traditional relationship. And it is how I like to say it. It's more of a 60-40, 75-25, 80-20 split in terms of what financial benefit we're bringing into the relationship, which I coined. I get dinner, I get the bulk of the particular, financial contribution, and you get the details, you get the starters, you get the extras, you get the drinks. I really like this dynamic because I think it forgoes any kind of financial exploitation on behalf of your partner. I don't know about you guys. Look, I'm going to be utterly transparent here. I know this is masculine theory, and I know perhaps the majority of you would think, Joseph, you want to pursue a masculine, a traditional relationship in that respect. I don't think I would feel comfortable with my partner not contributing anything financially to the relationship. And if I'm gonna go out on a limb here, I don't think you guys would either. If you're an average guy, if you're working a 9-to-5, you are not going to be able to support yourself, your wife, and your children based on this kind of relationship unless you are in the top 1% or unless you live in an Eastern country. And the reasons are governmental. And the reasons are by the government, right? They recognize they need to get their income tax from the other partners who are staying at home. It does not benefit their bottom line to have them not paying some kind of income tax. I'm being very, very rational and using sound reasoning here to come to what I believe is a happy medium between the two that is possible. Because in this kind of dynamic, you can show your partner that you are the leader, that you are the provider in this particular context. Not saying that she isn't contributing, but there is a very obvious kind of, direction in terms of who is leading the relationship, who is taking it forward, who is navigating it, who is the captain of the ship, who's the general of the army. Not saying that you can't take value from your second in command and have contributions from her, but it goes back to what I said about egalitarian relationships. If there is confusion, then contempt starts to breed, and then resentment starts to breed, and then the relationship's legs have already gone. The difficulty for me would be in more larger financial investments, such as if you're going to buy a home together, such as if you're maybe living together and paying rent, maybe you're paying rent and she's paying utilities, you're going to have to get a little bit more specific in terms of, what that percentage split looks like. I think it's a very dangerous idea to start going into details on minor things like dinner. That's why I like to call it, I get dinner, you get drinks. Let's not look at the price. We know by and large meals are going to be more expensive than the drinks. So I'll get the meal, you get the drinks. We know by and large that rent is going to be more expensive than the utilities like electricity, like Wi-Fi, like water. So I'm going to get the rent and you can contribute with the utilities. When it comes to rent, when it comes to property especially, I think it might be sensible for you to draw up something a little bit more specific and a little bit more detailed and a little bit more nuanced in that kind of context. Otherwise, again, you're going to breed confusion. She's going to question your leadership. And again, the relationship is kind of forfeit before it starts to get anywhere. I think this is a really excellent medium between those two particular relationships in the modern world, especially for the average man. I'd be very interested if you guys are pursuing a relationship predicated on that, or if it's traditional, or if it's egalitarian, what the benefits are in your experience and what you would share and advise to other men. I'm really interested in this topic because I think it's something we don't get clear on, especially if we're courting somebody, if we're seducing somebody to be in a relationship. And I'd be very interested to see how you guys navigate in that kind of context. These aren't theories, they're facts. Speak soon.